Welcome back. As I've mentioned, I just returned from the United States where I was attending the RNC, the Republican Convention in Milwaukee. And it was a wonderful convention with a lot of positive energy. Of course, front and center on the policy side were issues of domestic nature. That's what's primarily concerning Republicans these days and primarily concerning Americans. Of course, during the last 2 weeks, during the time that I was away, that I was in the United States, we also had the failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Right now, America is in some serious political crisis. Although there was not much focus on Israel at the Republican convention, in his 90-minute speech, his acceptance speech of the nomination on the final night of the convention, President Trump made one very brief statement that I believe contains within it some significant policy direction regarding the Middle East. He said as follows: "I tell you this, we want our hostages back, and they better be back before I assume office, or you will be paying a very big price." Now, while that doesn't seem like a very significant policy statement, it really is. And let me explain briefly why. First, it signals a return to the peace through strength policies of the Trump administration. Donald Trump approach to the bad actors in the Middle East was to punish them. He killed Soleimani, he wiped out ISIS, he sanctioned Iran, and on it goes. You've heard us talk about this on the show. And what that did was it brought peace. Donald Trump understood how the Middle East works. And in this statement, he was not speaking a language of ceasefire, negotiation, or appeasement. Rather, he was speaking the language of punishing the enemies who are bad actors. It was also a significant policy statement because, as the only statement in the speech that had anything to do with Israel's war with its enemies, he focused on an America First message. He focused on the fact that Hamas is an enemy of the United States as much as it's an enemy of Israel, focusing on, once again, the holding of U.S. hostages by Hamas. This, of course, signals to the patriotic and somewhat isolationist wing of the MAGA movement that the war in Israel is an American interest as well. So this was actually a pretty significant policy statement. There's a lot more to say about the RNC, and joining me to break it down and to talk about where we stand now in terms of Israel and the Jewish vote is the chairman of the GOP in Israel, as well as the chief counsel and, I believe, vice president of Republicans overseas, Mark Zell. He's been with us before. Mark, welcome back to Eyes on Israel. I hope I got all the titles right.
You got it all right, and good to be with you, Pesach.
So, Mark, you attended the RNC, and of course, you represent the GOP in Israel, and you've been working really hard on the Get Out the Vote campaign for the over 500,000 eligible voters in Israel. Tell us what your thoughts were on the RNC, on where we stand in terms of the Republican Party and Israel, the Israeli electorate. Let it rip.
Well, it was one of the most extraordinary experiences I've had in my U.S. political life. My last convention was the 2016 convention, which was the last one that was open to the public as large. And there was no comparison. This one was full. It was full of energy, as you indicated, enthusiasm. The party is united. We have great candidates, and we had great speakers throughout the convention. And I would say also on Wednesday night, there was quite a bit of attention focused on Israel and the Jewish people, as you recall, Pesach, when we had the statement, the speech by the Nutra family, American hostages, and focus on the 8 American hostages, as well as the other ones. The other 120 or odd hostages. We had the very powerful speech by the Harvard University student who was talking about anti-Semitism, and I think from a Jewish and Israeli point of view, the very upbeat speech by Matt Brooks, the executive director or CEO, as he calls himself, of Republican Jewish Coalition, really got everybody on their feet. So it was an amazing convention. Donald Trump's speech at the end was long, but moving, particularly as he related his own thoughts about the attempted assassination. Meeting his family members, Donnie Jr. and Eric, spoke with his granddaughter, spoke with great skill and eloquence. It was from every point of view. I mean, even you may not like it, but Hulk Hogan's
I loved
appearance
it.
at the end, and even Tucker Carlson, who's not one of our friends here in Israel, nevertheless gave an excellent introduction to the president's speech. The fellow that's the head of the UFC, forget his name, Mike Lee or David Lee, something like that.
Dana White. Yeah.
Dana White, okay, whatever it is, he gave a rip roaring speech. We all were just moved to beyond belief by that convention. Another thing I would say is at the end, while we were waiting for Donald Trump's acceptance speech, I was like others receiving word of the Houthi drone attack on Tel Aviv, and that was kind of a down moment as we were relating to that, even as we were celebrating at the RNC. But we were glad to see in the aftermath the very positive response and effective response by the Israeli Air Force, destroying the port facilities in Yemen. So it was a great week, and only then, once we got out of that, I'm sure we're going to talk about it. The very dramatic events at the White House and Biden's resignation from the race and Kamala Harris's ascendance.
So, let's talk about that. We have some time. We have about 4.5 minutes left. What do you think the implications are for Israel, if any, to the palace intrigue or the turmoil in the Democratic Party now and the elevation of Kamala Harris?
They're not good. I'll put it in a word. Kamala Harris is probably the most extreme left-wing president ever, or nominee for presidency ever running. Her record as a senator was even left to Bernie Sanders, if you can believe that. She is not a friend of Israel. The people that back her, the Obama types that were really running the Biden administration, are not our friends, as we've seen. And I expect that between now and the election day and inauguration day, the relationship between the United States and Israel will become ever more tense. We've got to do the best we can to elect Donald Trump and the Republican Party. Okay, I'm sorry, I had a phone call there. Fine. So in any event, so that's how I look at it. We've got some challenging times ahead, and Kamala Harris is a formidable candidate. It's hard to believe, but because of the unification that she's caused in the Democratic Party, her success very quickly in raising funds, and her appearances thus far, the enthusiasm that she's caused is cause for concern. We've got to continue our direction and win this election.
All right. So as we're recording this today, we are the day of Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech to a joint session of Congress. This show will be released shortly after it, so the speech will already have happened. But just let us know, now that we have a chance to talk to you right on the day of the speech, what are you hoping to see from Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech? I know myself, and I've expressed this on this show, I wasn't 100% sure this is the greatest idea. It's a bit of a minefield in American politics right now. But what are your hopes for Prime Minister Netanyahu's speech today?
I have no doubt that his speech, content-wise and delivery-wise, will be excellent. I mean, he has few competitors in the communications realm. He's the best. I agree with you, Pesach, and I've also expressed my concerns, as have others, about the timing of the speech. He's walking into a real whirlpool here of chaos in the American political scene. He's been scrambling to get meetings with the President Biden, who's his physical condition is still very much in doubt. With the Vice President Harris is boycotting the speech, as is the President pro tem and other leading Democrats on the Senate side, and even getting a meeting with Donald Trump took some doing. I think it's going to happen on Friday, and I'm hopeful that Vice President nominee Senator Vance will be attending that meeting as well. So, but I have my main concern is that we get out of this speech with the message that Prime Minister Netanyahu wants to give to the American people, and at the same time not fall victim to the very tumultuous forces now working in the American political field.
Well, Mark, one last question, and we only have just about a minute left. You're at the forefront of the lawsuits that are being filed. Your firm is filing them against the executive order targeting American citizens who have the temerity to oppose the plans of the Biden administration for a two-state solution. What's the status, very quickly, in just a minute, what's the status of those lawsuits, and where are we in fighting the Biden administration?
Well, we're going to be following them in really any moment. There have been some last-minute developments internally with respect to some of the plaintiffs, which we have to adjust to. When I get off this podcast, I'll be working on that. So we'll be giving you the heads up when we follow that in the next couple of days. And one of the other things that we're going to be raising with the Trump campaign team is to add Executive Order 14115, which is the one you referred to the list of executive orders issued by the Biden administration that we hope that President Trump, if he's elected, will cancel early on in his when he returns to the White House, God willing.
All right, Mark Zell, chairman of the GOP in Israel, thank you so much for joining us here on Eyes on Israel. These IDF widows have lost everything as they grieve for their husbands. They're also scrambling to make ends meet without their family's main provider. We cannot abandon them. Their husbands died to protect Israel and the free world from terror. Now we must protect their families who sacrifice so much. Every dollar raised pays for critical expenses like food, utilities, and clothing. Please give generously at idfwidows.com for the heroic widows and orphans of the fallen soldiers of the IDF. That's idfwidows.com.